piece of that prophecy, which is to require a number of everyone to buy and sell. Now, does that mean that, you know, that it's impending, that it'll be here any minute? I have no idea. But I will say that for the first time in history, after 2,000 years of people scratching their heads over this, we are the first generation to be living in a period of time where it is technically and technologically possible to fulfill that scripture. And then the second piece that has just come into play in the last probably I'd say 2 years is the mark component, or at least the potential to have something in your hand or your forehead capable of transmitting a number. And that is the same technology we were just talking about, the USDA requiring now that farmers put into their animals these implantable microchips, tiny computer chips the size of a grain of sand hooked up to miniature antennas, encapsulated in glass, about the size of an elongated tic-tac, if you can picture that, that can be injected through a syringe. They plunge the syringe into the flesh, they push the plunger, and voila, the microchip slips right in. They put a little Band-Aid on it, you know, wipe up the blood, and that's the end of it. And now someone has a microchip in them. Already millions of dogs and cats around the country have been chipped with this technology. Now they're about to chip every single food animal in the country, which is an extraordinary undertaking. And now there is a version that can be placed into human beings. And in our website, let me give people some resources, because I'm sure anyone hearing this probably wants to learn more.
Okay, well, before we do that, now, Ken, do you have anything else you want to ask? Or
I just appreciate her work so much. I really do. I'm just fascinated by her work, and I really appreciate it. And I'm going to hang up because I want to hear your contact information. I want to get your report, and I would just love to read your material.
Well, thank you so much, Ken. I sure appreciate it. I'll give everybody an opportunity to get a pen here. And let me tell you a couple of things. We've got the book, The Spy Chips Threat. If you're a Christian or if you're interested in Christian issues, The Spy Chips Threat is available at any Christian bookstore. It's also on Amazon.com. I don't use Amazon because they require a credit card, and I don't use a credit card, but that's one place you can get it if you're an Amazon shopper. They have it at a discount there. And also your local Christian bookstore should either carry a copy or be able to get one for you. The other book is Spy Chips, How Major Corporations and Government Plan to Track Your Every Move with RFID. That's the overall RFID issue. We have a whole chapter in there about chipping human beings with deep organ implants that can electroshock people and all kinds of creepy stuff that these guys have patented and come up with. But most of those books are dealing with the commercial use of RFID technology by major corporations like IBM and Philips and Procter & Gamble and Gillette and, you know, all the companies that we have products in our homes. The other resource I want to make available to people, because I know not everyone is in a position to buy a book, is on our website at spychips.com. If you have internet access, we have a newsletter, which lately has been a little less frequent than I'd like it to be because I've been finishing my dissertation. But we have a free newsletter on there you can sign up for. You can also join Caspian, which is the worldwide organization with now over 12,000 members that I founded back in '99 when I was working on supermarket cards. We work on a whole variety of consumer privacy issues. We're nonpartisan, non-secular, non-religious. We're open to anybody who agrees that it's wrong to spy on people through the things and services that they buy. You can sign up for that right there on our homepage at spychips.com, or you can go to nocards. I'll just make it easy and say nocards.com. Both of those websites will give you that information. And if you want to get an example of how just one company has abused this, you can go to boycottgillette.com. And I don't use Gillette products anymore. I don't use Procter & Gamble products anymore because those two companies were essentially the driving force behind the adoption of RFID and slipping it into people's products and using it to spy on them. So hopefully, and then my email address real quick is KM as in Mary A, at spychips, spychips.com. I've already gotten a couple of requests for that, supermarket articles, so if you want to get copies of that, I'll be happy to send them to you.
Now, what is the organization that you founded, Caspian, doing to stop this NACE situation that will progress to all of us having the chip?
Well, let me back up a little bit. We have been working, particularly here in New Hampshire, where we have a local chapter. We've been working on legislation in the state of New Hampshire that would require a label or a notice on something containing an RFID tag. And I know we talked about this, Johnny, in our last interview, where I talked about how they can actually embed these things into the soles of your shoes. We have information that Philips, for example, wants to embed readers in the floor to actually, as you step on the floor tiles or on the carpet, they could actually read the tag in your shoe and download the information off the computer chip they've put in your shoe and know where you are and who you are. So we, having seen these shoes demonstrated actually at trade shows, most recently in Dallas just 2 months ago, having seen on page 38 in SpyChips, we have a photograph of the Calvin Klein clothing label where you can actually see the microchip in the antenna right in the clothing label that would be sewn right into somebody's shirt. So we are working on legislation around the country that would require a label so that we consumers can at least be informed. Right now it's perfectly legal for a company to insert a microchip, an antenna RFID tag into anything you own and use it to track you. There's nothing in any of the 50 states that would prevent them from doing that. And what's more, they don't have to tell you they've done it because these things can be so easily hidden. They can be sandwiched into shoes, sewn into the labels of, or into the seams of clothing. They can be slipped into plastic of things as they're molded at the factory in such a way that you'd never know they were there.
So you can't even cry invasion of privacy because you don't even know they've done that.
That's the whole thing, and that's where the lobbyists here in New Hampshire, we've been working on this bill for months now, and if anybody's in New Hampshire, please drop me a line because I'll put you to work this weekend to try to get our bill passed because it's up for a vote next week. KMA@spychips.com, drop me a line if you're in New Hampshire. But basically,
on the line.
They
hold on 1 second. Let Catherine finish her one thought, and then I'll go right to you.
Well, they sent out lobbyists from all over the country to fight our legislation that does nothing but say you have to tell us where they are. And they had 57 bogus reasons for why they couldn't do it. I've never heard such a bunch of baloney in my life. But anyway, the industry doesn't do it. I've never heard such a bunch of baloney in my life. But anyway, the industry doesn't want to tell us.
All right, we'll come back to some of those bogus things they told you. But caller, I'm glad you called. What's your first name and where are you calling from?
Hello, Gianni. This is John. I'm down here in Texas.
Hey, John, how are you?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. I just wanted, I don't know if I sent you an email. I guess that was Ken was holding on the line when I tried to call in there, but the phone was busy. But anyways, Catherine, so good to speak with you. I've listened to you on several different other shows and could never get into call and talk to you or make a comment or anything, but in regards to the Animal ID Act, that is already passed down here in Texas.
Yeah, I know, and it's had a lot of opposition in Texas, too.
Yes, but they did it sneaky, though. See, they did this out in West Texas, out in a little bitty hick town out there, and didn't really publicize it too much. And I tell you what, the ranchers and stuff down here are going actually, they're livid.
Well, and let me tell people, if you're interested in working on the NACE issue, which is a huge and crucially important issue, the website you want to go to, this is not my website, it's nonace.org. That's N-A-I-S for National Animal ID System, nonace.org. On there, they have on the right-hand column, it's massive amounts of resources, but they've got the local bulletin boards and local chapters for each state. And I would urge people, even if you don't have a food animal, they're coming for you next, believe me. Go onto that website, get in touch with the local people working on that, and roll up your sleeves and pitch in. Send some money to Walter Jeffries, who's running that website. Do whatever you can do to get involved in that issue before, as John says, before you wake up one day and you realize your state has already adopted this thing, and the next thing you know, the feds are going to be coming onto your property asking to inspect it because you have a chicken.
But it's not only the chickens, though. It's also if you got a pet parakeet or whatever have you, anything, a cat, a dog, they want them things chipped.
You mean house pets? They're doing house pets?
Yes, they can find. Yes, but Gianni, I'm telling you, I have a red-crested Amazon parrot, and according to that law, now they've kind of put this thing on the back burner, saying, well, they're not going to enforce it. And I think this is just a ploy. They're going to do this. They're going to pass these laws in these states, basically just let it sit there like they got so many other laws, but then when time comes, they want to take somebody's land, they can go back retroactively and say, okay, we're going to fine you $1,000 a day. People's not going to have it. They're going to take their lands and put them in jail.
I hadn't heard that about the pets and the animals. In fact, it was my understanding that they were exempt. So I'm not sure how that's where.
Not here in Texas. Now, unless Derry Brownfield had his information wrong, that was supposed to have been revised here in Texas, but they did not take that out. They snuck it through that your pets have to be tagged. Now that was the last thing I got here in Texas. Now that I may have my information wrong because I got this from Derry Brownfield show.
Well, John, let me tell you, I know I've corresponded with Walter Jeffries. I've been all over his website, and I know that the nonace.org information should be accurate and should be up to date for each of the states. So you may want to check that out there. I do know that each state, the way they're doing this is that your state has to vote in or vote into effect actual legislation to enact the USDA's requirements. So here in New Hampshire, they just voted something in where if you transfer ownership of a goat or a sheep, I believe, you have to file that with the state, so the state will know who owns all of the food animals. And now, Johnny, you were saying that you thought this was a precursor to tagging humans, and I agree with you for a number of different reasons. But I also have a different
John, did you have anything you wanted to add, or did you want to stay on, or let Catherine?
No, I'm going to get off, and you two ought to get together and kind of write a sort of a book about this, to get people more informed, kind of like you did with your Jacob's Demon, which is a great book. Gianni, really appreciate what you did on that, and people really need to buy that book. And I'm going to get off here and bid you ladies farewell.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Yeah, what I was going to say, my concern has always been from the beginning the monitoring of food. Because if you control the food supply, you control the population. People will do whatever you want if they're starving. And the first way to control food is you control people's access to being able to shop at the store. That went into effect when they implemented these darn shopper cards. And, they started doing that in the early 1990s. There are now teenagers who don't remember a time when the store didn't know everything you bought. So that's already underway. That's already in effect. They're already watching what we buy. You can still use cash, and I would urge everyone listening to my voice, please use cash. It's cash, use it or lose it. If we don't demand our right to use cash, it's going to be gone, and quicker than we think. But the thing that has me most concerned about these food animals is that it's food. They're targeting our food. If the government wants to, there's an executive order that gives the president the ability to take control of all food animals and all food in this country in case of a national emergency. Now, when they tried this under Stalin, they had a really hard time identifying where the food was. And in fact, they created an artificial famine in the Ukraine where millions of people died, specifically because Stalin went and confiscated the food. But it was hard. And it took, an army of soldiers going through that land for months to pull it off. If you've registered every chicken, every cow, every animal you could possibly eat, then when the government wants to come and take it away, they know right where they are. They're registered. And just like
we both know, Catherine, that the president could enact any law he wants with the stroke of a pen through a presidential directive or an executive order. And what you're talking about could happen tomorrow, and there's nothing we could do.
Well, and in the same way that I said that, people who work on gun rights issues say that, the first step to control is registration. If you don't know what something is, you can't control it. Now, I've said the same thing about food. If the first step to controlling your ability to buy and sell food is to register the food as you buy it. And when you scan that supermarket card, that's exactly what you're doing. I'll tell you, the next step to controlling food is to register all of the food in the country. And that's really, in my mind, what NACE is all about. And it serves all sorts of other big brother purposes on top of that of registering people's land and giving the government all sorts of authority. But the bottom line of this is they are beginning to come for our food supply. And that's serious stuff.
Okay, so what do we do now? I know you have Caspian, but what can the average individual do, and what should we think that is on the horizon? How long is it going to take for them to require us to be chipped?
Well, I know, keep an eye out on electronic health records. I think that's one of the ways that this will be implemented. I think initially it will be voluntary. I think you'll probably start to see a call to chip, pedophiles and felons and parolees. We have information about that up on our blog. If you go to the blog at spychips.com,